Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on April 29th, 2021 at approximately 8:42 a.m. PST. Well, I mentioned yesterday that I was going to do my best to get a little more organized, so I did that. Hence why I'm running through things right now. Now, first rule of thumb. When you're dealing with getting your life organized, never mind trying. Okay, the first thing to realize, now I catch myself on a number of different words. If you look back at prior videos I've done, look up a subset called language. It identifies a few of the words that are very self-deprecating, okay, in any spoken language. Okay, things like can't, try, if. I know I've identified 9, I just don't know how many I've put together so far, and I would be putting up the other ones. Okay, but if you go back over the past videos, look for that subset, and it will show you why I catch myself on certain words. Just a thought. Now, and I can't show you physically right now, but over on this wall by my calendar, I have a sign that has the 4 most powerful words that I know of in the spoken language regarding rebuilding self-esteem, rebuilding self-worth, okay, and frankly, self-motivation. Those 4 words are I am worth it. Okay, you put those 4 words, number 1, on your fridge. The reason for it is the fridge is the one appliance in the house that everybody seems to read whatever's on it. This is why parents have a tendency of putting pictures that their kids have drawn on the fridge. You know, sort of to showcase it, if you will. Okay, and in this way, for those of you that like helping other people, those 4 words, when they read it, it will also help reset their mind. Okay, and one of our biggest jobs right now, one of the biggest tasks that I've got, and it's self-appointed, is to reach as many people as possible, okay, around the world. And I use the term people really loosely because I'm referring to humans, other races, animals, plants, you know, minerals, elements. It doesn't matter. They're all people to me. And every single one of you are worth as much as the next one. You're all of equal value. Now, by no means am I perfect, but those 4 words will help keep things in order for you. The second one, the second sign that I have, it sits up here, and it literally says, we have legally attained a minimum of $2,000 by April 30th, 2021 at 1 minute to midnight. Now understand, the $2,000 that we use in this case refers to household income, okay? Because the $2,000 is what we require to run this house, okay? To run this house, paying utilities, paying rent or mortgage if that's what you've got, okay? To pay food, insurance, even transportation. All of these things are included. Now, your number will undoubtedly be different. So figure out your own number and put that number in that equation. Okay. Now, because I also run a home business, okay, I run a consulting and a consulting business for what, 14 years? 14 years now. Now, because I've never put finances as a critical issue for me, okay, what's happened is I haven't amassed a whole lot. I am not a millionaire. But based on tax laws in Canada, my accountant, okay, told me I am able to claim 10% of the utilities for business. With that in mind, I've got a second sign up here that goes Inner Voice Enterprises, which is my company name, has legally generated a minimum of $200 by April 30th, 2021 at 1 minute to midnight. Now that $200 is 10% of my household required income. Okay, the idea here is very simple. By doing that, it draws the energy out of the spiritual world into the material world where it can be made manifest. Okay, that's first and foremost. Those two signs will help immensely. Now, don't take my word for it. Take a look at the way your life is going. Get those two signs in place. And note the way things change. Now, I'm still a bit of a dinosaur, so when I pointed over here to the calendar, most people have a calendar on the computer. I have a calendar on my computer. I just use a hard one. Okay, I just still use an old style calendar. Okay, now that will get you started. This is a question of trying to keep things organized in my own head. That's not always the easiest thing to do. Take my word for that one. Okay, now, step number 3 is to get your list. Now, my list tends to get a little longer, but then I also tend to be on the go. Yesterday, I managed to get 17 things done. And bear in mind, every job on your list, keep it to 15 minutes to half an hour, if at all possible. Okay, now clearly, if one of the things on your list is grocery shopping, if you're anything like I am, half an hour ain't going to do it. That might get you to the grocery store, but that's all it's going to do. Okay, so break it down where possible. If it's not possible, understand you're going to lose that much time. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, if you're picking a job, for instance, like I put in one book I wrote, Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. If you're tangling with, for instance, your living room, and let's say including tidying it up, cleaning everything off, dusting and vacuuming, and let's just assume it's going to take you 2 hours. Okay, if you list it as, I've got to do the living room, what you need and what you require is a 2-hour time slot. Now, if you don't get it completed and you get pulled away before that, which in today's world and in yesterday's world for that matter, is highly probable, you have to then find another 2-hour window to do that in. Plus, you feel like you got nothing done. However, if you break it down into 15-minute intervals, 15-minute to half hour, for instance, clear the floor, clear the shelves, right? Clear the coffee table. Mark these off as small tasks. Let's say you only get the first 2 done. Okay, and you get called away. Well, number one, you've already got half an hour's work out of the way, so you feel like you've got something accomplished. Number 2, you only require another hour and a half time frame instead of 2-hour time frame. Okay, to fit in. So again, we're still ahead of the game. Now, these lists, you pick 3 to start with. I usually start with more, but pick 3. When you finish one, okay, how to figure out which ones to start with. Wherever you're standing, wherever you're sitting right now, okay, that's where you start. Take a look around, you see what needs to be changed. Okay, like, for instance, if I look beside me here on this shelf right here, I've got things like, let's find a little toothpick bottle. In other words, this desk has to be cleared. Okay, take a look at the things around you. Pick 3 things that are right close at hand that you can see from where you are. Mark them down as your first tasks. When you get done this video, okay, and in all fairness, that may well be the first task. Finish watching the video. Okay, at which point, hopefully give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel so you can get the rest of the videos that are available and the rest of the ones coming out. Okay, share the daylights out of it and carry on with your day. Now understand, at the bottom of this video, you'll find a list of different publications I've personally got in print. Okay, I just added one yesterday called Mr. Dreamcatcher, which is a children's story about, you guessed it, Dreamcatchers. Okay, it is not a horror story. It is very much a children's story. Okay, but when you get one of the tasks finished, check it off, add a third one to the bottom of the list, and thus begins your rotation. By doing that, and don't forget to include things like you've got to have breakfast, you've got to have lunch, that sort of thing. By doing that, you'll go through your day, and even when you get done for the night, you'll have 3 things listed for tomorrow morning to get started on. Net result, you can start reclaiming power over your own life. Now, that's the first thing that I find. Okay, you get that task done, then you start getting organized. Okay, organization comes in directly in contact, in connection with the list that we're talking about. Okay, like I've got little drawers here. I don't know if you can see them. Not very well. There you are. They sit in a little shelf here. I've got to go through those and make sure they've got exactly what I desire in them today. Because, again, when you're reorganizing, it takes a lot of work. It did not take you 30 seconds to get into the situation you're in. So it's going to take you longer than that to get out of it. In my case, I spent 57 years, okay, creating an absolute disaster for myself. Well, 56, really. Last year, I started getting rid of stuff. Okay, and I've gotten rid of an awful lot of stuff at this point. So, by getting organized, by eliminating the things in your life that you're not content with, what's going to end up happening is you're going to find that all you're left with is what you're content with. Now, the nice little side effect there is if you're getting rid of the thing, if you eliminate all the things around you that you're not content with, and you talk to the people you know about what you're doing, you may just find that they start doing the same thing. And in all fairness, that is what I'm personally hoping is going to happen. So that people can start eliminating the negative things around them, things they're not content with. Because the reality is, by working together, we can get all of that negativity out of the way. And I know this is a long stretch. Okay, this is not an overnight thing. Way too many people on this planet to just make it an overnight. But if we all work together, then we do have the opportunity to get rid of war, to get rid of famine, okay, and get things back on track. But in all fairness, I can't do it on my own. I can take care of my world. I can spread the information to other people. Okay, and again, what I'm going to be doing here from this point forward. And you'll notice I said I'm going to be doing. I didn't say I'm going to try. Is I'm going to be more organized and get things going in a definitive pattern. Yeah, that's what I need. Live recording, so I don't go back and change anything. Okay, all I do at the end of a video is go back to the beginning and make sure that I got the date right to start with. Okay, and then I post it. That's why I call it live reading, a live recording, because I don't edit any of it. 1, I don't know how. 2, I don't care how. Okay, the way I figure it, if you run into me on the street and you ask me a question, I'll deal with you the same way I deal with the video. Half the time when I'm doing this, quite seriously, it feels like I'm talking to myself, which in essence I am. I'm here, I got a video looking at me, I'm watching me. But the idea, if we can get everybody working together, then we will be fine. Okay, now, because of what my temperature is doing right now, I'm going to pause this for half a second, and I'll be right back. As I said, I'll be right back. In my case, when my temperature starts to climb, I don't get a lot of options. So, needless to say, I had to take the sweater off and open the back of the window behind me. But if we work together, okay, we can and will eliminate things like war, like famine. There is no shortage of food on this planet. There is a shortage of distribution, and there is a staggering amount of waste. Okay, this is where the problem is. It has nothing to do with lack of food. Yes, some areas have troubles producing certain amount of food, right? So I mean, with that in mind, the trick here is putting medication into places. Yes, it helps people feel better, but unless you deal with an overpopulation problem and spread people out and modify the irrigation and what have you, you're not going to cure the food problem. Okay, keeping people alive longer on medication and bare sustenance is not working as well as we would like. This is obvious because the areas that everybody says they are starving to death. Now, I'm almost 58, and these same areas are the same ones they were complaining about, and justly so. But they were complaining about the same areas 50 years ago. Okay, well, if the method being used was working, we wouldn't still be dealing with the same problem after 50 years. It's the same problem that I had in a sense. I was a pack rat for the first, well, really 56 years of my life. I was an extreme pack rat. And if you don't change what you're doing, if you don't change the approach, if the approach isn't working, it's time to change the approach. That's just the reality behind it. Okay, so it is a question of getting organized. Now, the other point of getting organized is this. Okay, if you read anything about Feng Shui, now Feng Shui, most of the books out there are written with the concept of the energy is moving in certain ways, but they're all written, most of them are written for Eastern philosophy. And it works great in Eastern philosophy the way it's all written, because the Eastern cultures are built around it. Whenever they build a building, they make sure it's oriented in a certain fashion, or they do their best, or they compensate for it. Western society does not do that, but the principle still works. Okay, the principle around Feng Shui as in guide the energy where you desire it. So if you're in your office right now, or in what passes for your office, having an area in your office that is dedicated to finance will help draw the financial energy. Now, a couple of things that work really well, and I am not a specialist in this. I'm just working with what I've come across. Check with the people that know. Okay, talk to people that work with crystals all the time. My understanding is a piece of citrine or a piece of malachite in or near your cash box will help immensely in drawing the finances for you. Now, for those of you that think that it's just a rock, I thought the same thing when it came to the crystal ball I own. But it's not just your belief, it's what the global world, what the global population believes. And the majority of people out there that work in this field seem to attribute increased finances with citrine and or malachite. Which is why I'm saying, but talk to your own people. If you're already studying, you may know a better gem. Okay, a better stone that will work better. If so, drop me a line at one of the contact points below. I'm always willing to learn something. Now, yes, I'm pretty stubborn and I've got my own viewpoints. Absolutely, as I'm sure you have yours. But if you drop me a line below, if you've got questions, if you've got insights you'd like to share with me, absolutely drop them in one of the contact points. I will do my best to respond to you. And I will be getting other videos out to accommodate some of the questions that do come in. Okay, now, as the energy gets straightened around for you. Okay, now I know for me, finances are going to have to be right here because this is where I work on finances. So I will get that organized today. I'll let you know how that worked tomorrow. Okay, but you organize things, then as you get things straightened around, the real kicker to it, the way to make this really work, is to communicate with the people around you. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know how it's coming. How it's working out. Because the reality is, if you share what you're doing with other people, and they turn around and do it as well, that's how we get this ripple effect. That all of the negative things that are going on, we can finally correct. We can finally modify the energy. Now, sometimes the negative thing is simply window dressing to bring a positive one about. Like the tale of the gentleman that, the gentleman that thought everything was wrong. Okay, so he turns around and he's got his house, and his house is just a wreck. He's out of money, so it's like, I'm done. I can't do anything. I can't do anything with it. I'm going to lose it all. So, in a fit of rage, he hammers a hole in the wall. He ends up taking a hammer and throws it at the wall. Punches a hole. Now he's got another expense to worry about. But behind the wall, he finds a cache of money that has been there for a coon's age. Not necessarily his. He bought the house. It was a bit of a wreck. But the broken wall has opened the door and brought money into his house, so he can now manage to repair things. Hence why I said sometimes a negative reaction nets a positive result. Okay, so by communicating with the people around you, and here's the real kicker. There's a lot of spiritual guides out there, religious leaders, Wiccan, like, what are they called? I was going to call it den mothers, but that's in college. But heads of covens, okay, arch witches, that sort of thing, that are leading people. But the problem that I see happen in way too many cases, especially many of the mainstream religions, and a lot of the not so mainstream, is people are propagating fear. Fear this, fear that. Money is the root of all evil, so get rid of it. Of course, it never made any sense to me. Money's the root of all evil, so give it all to your church. There is nothing that makes sense there. If it's the root of all evil, why give it to the church? I mean, don't get me wrong. If you want to donate to the church and if they're doing something positive with it, by all means, more than one person putting money into something makes it a lot less financially straining for you and for the individual. But we've got to start talking to each other, regardless of religious outlook or spiritual background. We have to start talking to each other as equals. Because every person on the planet, every individual, is of equal value. Not necessarily monetarily speaking. Okay, but the reality is money is not the big problem. Okay, money is another form of barter. And I don't know about you, but I find it far easier to move a $10 bill around than a cow. Okay, it's just another form of barter. The biggest problem is people are being taught to fear. Okay, now fear to a small degree is a good thing. It helps keep your head out of the middle of a major problem. But fear is where the problem is. It's fear of lack that causes people to get greedy. A fear of losing everything that gets people being controlled, gets people to develop controlling attitudes. Okay, now the reality is I cannot change the way you do things. All I can do is go, here's a path to walk down that may be different than the one you're walking down. If the one you're walking down isn't working, give this one a shot and see what happens. Worst case scenario, you're still in the same boat and you haven't lost anything. Okay. Now, I got asked a really intriguing question one day. It's like, why should I believe what you're telling me? To me, it doesn't really matter whether you do. The reality is, whether you believe what I'm telling you or don't, you're still the one that's going to have to make up your own mind. And let's face it, we have freedom of choice. Which, by the way, contrary to popular belief, kind of eliminates, as a matter of fact, we're going to deal with that. If you've got freedom of choice, you're going to have a problem with destiny, okay, or fate. And I'm going to put a graphic display together. I just made a note for myself for today, so that tomorrow when I come back, I can show you exactly why fate and destiny are completely out of the equation if you have free will. Okay. And that's just something that I'm making a note for myself to make certain that I can get it done. Because the way I figured, if I can get that point across to you, you will hopefully figure out that regardless of where you came from, regardless of how old you are, regardless of what social life you've had in the past, you can reclaim control over your life now. And tomorrow we're going to show you exactly why. Okay. But it all boils down to communicating what you're feeling. Be open, be clear. And for pity's sakes, if somebody asks you a question, this whole idea in my eyes of being politically correct hasn't led very far in a positive fashion. I see people all the time trying to sugarcoat what's going on, and 99% of the time, the message does not come across properly. Okay, so with that in mind, of course, the one drawback with opening that window is there's a delivery truck that's opening doors. That's what you're hearing, the rattle in the background. But by communicating with the people around you, you can spread the information properly, and together we can eliminate war, famine, we can eliminate poverty, quite frankly. Yes, there are always going to be different levels of life. Okay. Some people like the street, and people say nobody likes the street. Well, I met a chap that had a 6-figure income. I met him personally. He had not a 6-figure income, a 6-figure balance in his bank. And he chose to live on the street. I know of another one that lived in a hole in the ground and owned approximately a quarter mile of riverfront property. Okay. Some people like that lifestyle. It doesn't make them any less valuable. It doesn't make them any less import than the person. Because think of it this way. Those of you that have a lot of money and you like your luxuries, you like going out to restaurants. Nothing against it. I like going out to restaurants myself. I just go to cheaper ones and to less expensive ones. Okay. But those people working in those restaurants don't make as much money as you do. They still deserve respect of treating them properly. Okay. And if you don't think it's a lot of work, here's a challenge for you. If you've got a lot of money, or if you've got a job that you think is harder than everybody else's. I had a client a few years back that thought his wife didn't work. In his words, she says she doesn't do anything. She just stays at home and raises our 3 boys. Well, the reality is, if you're a parent, if you're a single parent, you know full well that raising kids is extremely difficult. Okay, there's a lot of challenges to it. It's a lot of work. But we keep these into a half-hour run. Okay, and with that in mind, we're going to close this down. But we will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.